Okay, so the first question I chose to answer was question 1, and it says the authors argue that racism is more than acts of individual bad people. How does their definition vary from what you may have and or may still believed before reading the chapter? So, I think automatically when someone talks about racism, they obviously think about one terrible situation that someone did to another person or stuff like that. But so personally, I believe that everyone thinks about it that way. And here's the part in the book that says otherwise. On page 102, it says, dominant society teaches us that racism consists of individual acts of meanness committed by a few bad people. The people who commit these acts are considered racist, and the rest of us are not racist. And they pretty much say that that means that they're saying that racism is binary, which means that racist, the stuff that comes with being a racist, we think are ignorance, prejudice, mean-spirited, and most likely old Southern and working class. And if you're not a racist, you are well-liked, well-intentioned, open-minded. So it kind of puts you in two categories. And the book says that that is not true because it's kind of forcing you to think that racism only occurs in specific situations, but it's much more deeper than that. And the next part of question 1 says, additionally, what is racism and what is the problem with simply reducing racism to some things people think and do, or something a person simply is a racist. So one example that I thought of is that a lot of things on social media says that you can also be racist towards Caucasians, but I really like how the book put it. It says that racism is not fluid in that it does not move back and forth, one day benefiting whites and another day benefiting people of color. The direction of power between whites and people of color is historic, traditional, normalized, and deeply embedded in the fabric of the US. So if we just think of racism as an act of meanness towards a different ethnicity or race, then we can point it towards anything. But right now, the definition of racism is a form of oppression in which one racial group dominates over others. And in our country right now, Caucasians are dominating over the minorities, so we can't like flip the script. And I think that's really important because you can see a lot of, if you just think of racism as binary, you can definitely flip the script and say, oh, well, this black girl was being mean to this white girl, that's racism. But when you think about the definition and how racism is actually deeply embedded into our history and our society, that's not the case. And okay, that's it for question 1, I believe. Oh, next part of question was, can someone actually be a racist? And I think back in the day when segregation and slavery and all of that was happening, I think that's very true, that obviously there was people that were racist because our whole country was racist, America was racist. But nowadays I think it's very tricky because there's a difference between being a racist and being ignorant or not informed, and I think that's what people get in trouble for sometimes, just throwing out racism out there like it's a common thing. And it is still relevant in our country, but there's definitely a difference between being not informed about a culture or a race and just being plain out racist, if that makes sense. Okay, next question I just answered was question number 2, and it says the D'Angelo and Sensoy chapter argues that when we grow up in racially segregated locations, we learn about race. We learn a lot about race. How? What kind of things do we learn, and how do those things impact how we think about race and privilege? This question kind of confused me at first, but I kind of think I understand after reading the chapter. But pretty much what it says is that if we grow up racially segregated, which personally I didn't, obviously I grew up with a lot of races around me, but if we grow up racially segregated, we kind of learn about different races in a stereotypical way. So the book was saying that a lot of people will say that white communities and white schools are good, and then black communities and black schools are dangerous, or anything like that. And I think media also puts that out there. But we learn, or people that grow up in racially segregated locations learn about races, but not through experience, through stereotypes. And what kind of, I kind of answered this question, but what kinds of things do they learn is they learn the race stereotypes. So they learn that they are different and they might be better, or they learn that this race is dangerous, these communities are dangerous, these people are dangerous. And then next question, or next part of the question says, how do those things impact how and what we think about race and privilege? And especially if you don't grow up in a racially diverse school area, neighborhood, you learn about race through what other people are teaching you and not through your own experiences. And I think that's very important, because obviously when you grow up, you're not always going to be around your own race, and you're always gonna come into contact with people that are different than you. And if you only know about what you've been taught, or what you perceive things or stereotypes, then that can be a very slippery slope, because obviously stereotypes are not fact, and just coming into contact personally with people of different races is very important to expand your knowledge on that race. If that makes sense. Thank you.